Okay, so you're getting ready for this warehouse order picker interview,
Yeah,
and you want to like totally crush it, right?
for sure. We're going to help you get there.
We're diving deep into all these resources from RoleCatcher. They've got this career guide and an interview guide, even some cool AI stuff.
Yeah, their platform is pretty amazing.
But it's not just about memorizing answers or anything. It's about really understanding what it's like to work in a warehouse.
Exactly. You got to be able to think on your feet.
Yeah, and show them you're like the order picking ninja they've been searching for.
Exactly. So let's start by painting a picture of a typical day for an order picker. Imagine huge rows of shelves stacked high with all kinds of stuff. You'll be navigating this maze sometimes under pressure, making sure you pick the right things with total accuracy.
Sounds kind of like a fast-paced dance almost.
It can be.
So besides being able to like lift heavy boxes, what are some other skills that are super important?
Well, physical stamina is definitely a must-have. But what really makes a difference is attention to detail.
Because if you mess up an order, it can cause all kinds of problems.
Right. Delays frustrated customers, and it costs the company money. Employers are also looking for accuracy, prioritizing tasks, and being able to solve problems quickly.
Like if something's out of stock.
Exactly.
Now, RoleCatcher mentioned that certain certifications can give you a leg up.
Oh, absolutely. Things like a forklift operator certification or OSHA safety training.
Those show you're serious about safety and have some extra knowledge, right?
Right, which means you'll be a more efficient and valuable asset to the warehouse.
Smart move.
Very well.
So let's dive into those interview questions. RoleCatcher provided 10 common ones.
Perfect. Let's break them down.
First one. Tell us about your previous experience in warehouse order picking. What if you've never actually worked as an order picker before?
That's where you focus on those transferable skills. Think about times you've had to be organized, detail-oriented, or work quickly under pressure.
Yeah.
Maybe you volunteered at a food bank or organized a stockroom, or even just managed a really complex project. Focus on those core skills. That's what employers really want to hear about.
So even if you haven't been dodging forklifts, you can still nail this question.
Exactly.
Okay, next one. How do you prioritize orders when multiple orders need to be picked at the same time? Sounds like they're really testing your multitasking skills.
Definitely. They want to see that you can handle the pressure when things get busy. This is where a specific example can really shine. Have you ever juggled multiple assignments with tight deadlines in school? Or maybe you worked in a fast food place and had to prioritize orders during a rush.
I've definitely been there.
Explain your system for staying organized and getting everything done on time.
Show them you can handle the heat.
Exactly.
Okay, here's one that seems pretty straightforward. How do you ensure accuracy when picking orders?
This is your chance to highlight those detail-oriented skills. Don't just say, I double-check everything. Explain your process. Do you have a mental checklist you run through? A specific way of scanning barcodes, or a system for organizing your picking cart?
So it's not just about being careful, but about having a system in place.
Right. You want to show them that you're meticulous and take pride in getting things right.
Okay, let's talk about those uh-oh moments.
Yeah.
What about how do you handle a situation where an item is out of stock? I imagine that happens pretty often.
It does. And this is where your problem-solving skills come in. First, confirm that it's actually out of stock. Double-check the location, maybe even look in the back. Then, how do you communicate the issue? Do you let your supervisor know, or is there a specific system for flagging shortages?
It's about being proactive, right?
Exactly. You want to show that you can handle these bumps in the road smoothly.
So even a potential problem can become an opportunity to shine.
Exactly.
Okay, this next one seems a bit unexpected. How do you maintain an organized and clean work area? Is that really that important?
It's huge. A cluttered work area is a safety hazard. People can trip, things can fall, and it slows everyone down. Remember, you're in a fast-paced environment. Every second counts.
So a clean workspace means more efficiency and safety.
Exactly.
Now, teamwork seems like it would be crucial in a warehouse. How would you approach this one? How do you work as part of a team to ensure orders are fulfilled accurately and on time?
This is all about your communication skills and your ability to collaborate. Can you clearly explain things to your colleagues? Are you willing to help others and contribute to a positive work environment?
So it's about being a team player.
Right. Think about a time when you had to work as part of a team to achieve a goal, maybe a group project in school or volunteering for an event.
Yeah.
What was your role? How did you contribute to the team's success?
Okay, let's talk about safety. How do you prioritize safety when working in a warehouse environment?
It seems like there could be a lot of hazards. There are heavy equipment moving objects, potential for falls, not to mention the physical demands of the job itself. Knowing and following safety procedures is crucial, but employers also want to see that you're proactive.
So it's not just about following the rules, but about actively looking for ways to be safer.
Right. Do you look out for potential hazards? Do you use proper lifting techniques to avoid injuries? Would you speak up if you saw someone doing something unsafe?
It's about taking ownership of safety.
Exactly.
Speaking of ownership, what about this question? How do you handle a situation where a customer is unhappy with their order? I thought order pickers didn't usually interact directly with customers.
You're right, they usually don't. But this question is about your problem-solving skills and professionalism. Even though you're behind the scenes, your work directly impacts the customer experience.
Makes sense.
So how would you approach this? Would you try to understand the issue? Would you offer a solution within your scope of responsibility?
So it's about showing that you care about the bigger picture, even if you're not face-to-face with the customer. Okay, things don't always go perfectly.
Ah.
How would you answer? How do you handle a situation where you are unable to complete your assigned tasks within the allotted time?
Oh, we've all been there.
For sure.
Honesty and communication are key here. Explain how you would prioritize tasks, seek help if needed, and learn from the experience. It's okay to acknowledge that sometimes things take longer than expected, but what matters is how you react. Do you make excuses or do you take ownership? Find solutions and make sure it doesn't happen again.
So it's about showing that you're accountable and a problem solver.
Exactly.
And finally, the question we all love, can you describe a time when you went above and beyond to ensure customer satisfaction? Time to brag a little.
Exactly. This is your chance to tell a story that shows your initiative, your problem-solving skills, or your commitment to exceeding expectations.
Okay.
Did you catch a potential error that would have delayed an order? Did you come up with a way to improve a process, make it memorable?
So we've covered a lot here, from warehouse basics to those tricky interview questions. But I'm curious, how can RoleCatcher's AI help me stand out even more?
Well, what's really cool is that RoleCatcher's AI can actually analyze job descriptions. It can identify missing skills on your resume and help you tailor it to be a perfect fit.
Wait, it can help me get past those automated systems?
It's like having a personal interview coach.
That's amazing. Tell me more.
Their Copilot AI can analyze your answers to these very questions we've been talking about. It even gives feedback on video rehearsals.
Wow, so it can help me fine-tune my delivery and make sure I'm presenting myself in the best possible way.
Exactly. It's all about giving you the tools and insights you need to nail that interview and land the job.
This is incredible. I'm feeling so much more confident already.
That's great to hear.
Now, before we move on, I want to touch on something that's really important. We've been talking about how to ace the interview, but what about the bigger picture? What does a career in this field actually look like?
That's a great question, and one that a lot of people don't consider until it's too late.
RoleCatcher's Career Guide mentions something about the future of warehouse work, being tied to the growth of e-commerce. What's that all about?
Well, think about it. More and more people are shopping online these days, which means there are more orders to process, pack, and ship.
And that's where warehouse order pickers come in.
Exactly. It's a growing field with a lot of potential.
So it's not just a job, it's a career path.
Exactly. And the demand for skilled warehouse workers is only going to increase.
That's good to know. But it's not just about picking orders, is it?
Nope. It's about thinking ahead. How can you stand out and advance in this career?
Okay, so how do you move up the ladder in a warehouse?
Well, one way is to specialize. Could you become the go-to person for handling fragile items or hazardous materials?
Oh, interesting.
Or maybe you could learn about warehouse automation and work with robots.
So it's about becoming an expert in a specific area.
Exactly.
What about leadership roles?
Absolutely. The RoleCatcher Career Guide mentions warehouse supervisor as a possible next step. You could be training new team members, overseeing processes, or even optimizing the warehouse layout for better efficiency.
So it's not just about doing your job. It's about looking for ways to improve things.
Right. And that kind of initiative is always appreciated.
Okay, but before we get too ahead of ourselves, let's go back to those interview questions for a minute. Let's say you've aced all the experience-based questions, and then they hit you with something like, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Ah, the classic 5-year plan question.
How do you answer that honestly, without sounding like you're just trying to get your foot in the door?
It's a chance to show them that you're thinking long-term, that you're genuinely interested in a career, not just a job.
Right.
You can talk about how you're eager to learn and grow within the company. Maybe even mention specific areas that interest you, like those specializations or leadership roles we discuss.
So it's about aligning your goals with the company's goals.
Exactly.
Any other tips for making a lasting impression in the interview?
Do your research on the company. What kind of goods do they handle? What's their company culture like?
Oh, that's a good point.
Mentioning something specific about the company shows that you're genuinely interested and that you've done your homework.
So it's about going the extra mile.
Exactly.
Feeling super prepared now. Before we wrap up, any final words of wisdom for our listeners who are getting ready for their big interview?
Here's something to consider. We've talked about the growth of e-commerce and how it's driving demand for warehouse workers. But what about the other side of that coin? What about automation?
That's a good point. Robots are already being used in some warehouses.
Right. So is that a threat to job security or is it an opportunity?
I'm not sure.
It could be both. Some routine tasks might be automated, but that creates opportunities for humans to take on more complex roles.
I see.
Maybe it's about managing those robots' troubleshooting issues or handling those delicate items that require a human touch.
So it's not about being replaced by machines. It's about adapting and learning new skills.
Exactly. This interview could be your entry point into a rapidly evolving field. Think about how you can position yourself for the future. Could you become an expert in a specific type of automation? Could you train others on how to work alongside robots safely and efficiently?
So it's about seeing the bigger picture and being prepared for whatever comes next.
Exactly.
This deep dive has been incredible. I feel like I've gone from feeling nervous about the interview to feeling excited about the possibilities.
That's what we aim for. Knowledge is power. And now you have the insights and strategies you need to not just ace that interview, but to thrive in this growing field. And remember, RoleCatcher's AI can be a valuable tool in this journey.
Absolutely. Use those AI tools to fine-tune your resume, practice your answers, and present the best version of yourself. All right, so we've covered a ton of ground here. We've talked about the day-to-day realities of working in a warehouse, those tricky interview questions, and even how RoleCatcher's AI can give you an edge in the job market. But now I want to shift gears a little and talk about something that's really important for anyone considering a career as a warehouse order picker: safety.
Absolutely. Safety should always be top of mind in any warehouse environment.
RoleCatcher's Career Guide has a whole section on safety, and it's packed with valuable information.
It really is. They cover everything from basic safety procedures to hazard identification.
What are some of the most common hazards that order pickers face?
Well, you've got heavy equipment like forklifts and pallet jacks moving around. You've got boxes stacked high, which can fall if they're not properly secured. And you're constantly lifting and moving heavy objects, which can lead to strains and sprains.
So there's a lot to be aware of.
There is. And that's why it's so important to be proactive about safety.
What does that mean exactly?
It means not just following the rules, but also constantly looking for potential hazards and taking steps to avoid them.
So it's about being aware of your surroundings and thinking ahead,
Exactly. And it's also about speaking up if you see something unsafe.
even if it's not your job.
Right. If you see a coworker doing something that could put them or someone else at risk, you have a responsibility to say something.
Now, I know that some people might be hesitant to speak up, especially if they're new to a job or don't want to rock the boat.
I understand that. But safety should always come first. If you're working in a warehouse where safety isn't a priority, you might want to reconsider whether that's the right environment for you.
That's good advice. So we've talked about the physical hazards, but what about things like stress and fatigue?
Those are important factors too. Warehouse work can be physically demanding and mentally draining, especially if you're working long hours or under tight deadlines.
What are some ways to manage stress and fatigue?
Well, it's important to take breaks when you need them. Stay hydrated, eat healthy foods, and get enough sleep. And if you're feeling overwhelmed, don't be afraid to talk to your supervisor.
It's about taking care of yourself both physically and mentally.
Exactly. You can't be your best at work if you're not feeling your best.
Now, I know that warehouse work isn't always glamorous, but it's a vital part of our economy.
Absolutely. And there are a lot of rewards to be found in this line of work.
Like what?
Well, it's a job that keeps you physically active. You're constantly learning new things. And you're part of a team that's working together to achieve a common goal.
So it's not just about moving boxes. It's about making a difference.
Exactly. And for the right person, it can be a very fulfilling career.
I love that perspective. We've covered a lot in this deep dive, from the basics of warehouse order picking to the importance of safety and the future of the field. I'm feeling really informed and prepared now.
That's great to hear.
But before we move on to part 2, I want to leave our listeners with one final thought. No matter where you are in your career journey, whether you're just starting out or you're a seasoned professional, it's never too late to invest in yourself. Learn new skills, explore new opportunities, and never stop growing.
I couldn't agree more.
We'll be back soon with part 2 of this deep dive, where we'll explore even more about the world of warehouse order picking. Until then, stay safe, stay curious, and keep on crushing it.
See you next time. Yeah, it's all about staying ahead of the game.
Okay, so let's get back to those interview questions. We covered a lot of ground, but there's always more to learn.
Right. Let's see what else we've got.
What about this one? What are your salary expectations?
I hate that question.
I know it can be tricky, but it's important to be prepared.
So how do you answer that without pricing yourself out of the job?
Well, first you need to do your research. Find out what the average salary is for warehouse order pickers in your area. You can use websites like Glassdoor or salary.com.
Once you have a good understanding of the market rate, you can start to formulate your answer. It's important to be realistic, but also to know your worth.
Right. So don't sell yourself short.
Exactly. You can say something like, I'm looking for a salary that's competitive with the market rate for someone with my skills and experience.
That sounds good.
You can also mention any specific certifications or training you have that might justify a higher salary.
Like those forklift and OSHA certifications we talked about earlier.
Exactly.
Okay, what about this one? What are your strengths and weaknesses? Another classic.
It is. And it's a chance to really showcase your self-awareness.
So how do you talk about your weaknesses without sounding like you're not qualified for the job?
Well, the key is to be honest, but also to frame your weaknesses in a positive light.
Okay.
For example, you could say something like, I tend to be a perfectionist, which can sometimes slow me down. But then you can follow up with, however, I'm always working on improving my efficiency, and I'm confident that I can meet your deadlines.
So you're acknowledging the weakness, but also showing that you're working on it.
Right. And it's important to choose a weakness that's not critical to the job.
So don't say I'm terrible at following instructions.
Exactly.
Okay, what about strengths?
This is your chance to shine. Highlight those skills and qualities that make you a great fit for the job. Are you detail-oriented, organized, efficient, a team player? Back up your claims with specific examples.
So if you say you're a hard worker, give an example of a time when you went above and beyond.
Right. And tailor your strengths to the specific job requirements.
So if the job description emphasizes teamwork, talk about your experience working on teams.
Exactly.
Now, I know we've been talking a lot about how to prepare for the interview, but what about after the interview? What are some things you should do to follow up?
Following up is crucial. It shows that you're still interested in the job.
So what's the best way to follow up?
Well, you should always send a thank you note within 24 hours of the interview. It can be a handwritten note or an email. And in your thank you note, you can reiterate your interest in the position and mention something specific that you discussed during the interview.
That's a good tip.
You can also use the follow-up as an opportunity to ask any questions that you didn't get to ask during the interview.
Like what?
Well, you could ask about the next steps in the hiring process, or you could ask about the company culture.
So it's a chance to keep the conversation going.
Exactly.
Now, I know that looking for a job can be stressful, but it's important to stay positive and focus on your goals.
Absolutely. And remember that every interview is a learning experience.
Even if you don't get the job.
Right. You can always take something away from it and use that knowledge to improve your performance in future interviews.
So don't give up. Keep practicing and keep learning.
You'll find the right job eventually.
Now, before we wrap up this part, I want to circle back to something we touched on earlier, RoleCatcher's AI platform. I'm still amazed by how much it can do to help job seekers.
Me too. It's really a game changer.
We talked about how it can analyze job descriptions and identify missing skills on your resume.
Right. And how it can analyze your interview answers and provide feedback.
But there's even more to it, isn't there?
There is. One of the things I find most impressive is the Copilot AI.
Tell me more about that.
Well, it's basically an AI-powered interview coach that can help you practice your answers. It can even simulate a real interview environment so you can get used to the pressure.
That's incredible. So it's like having a personal interview coach in your pocket.
Exactly. And it's available 24/7.
Wow. So you can practice anytime, anywhere.
Right. And the more you practice, the more confident you'll become.
This is seriously amazing. I'm so glad we got to dive deep into RoleCatcher's resources today. They're really going above and beyond to help job seekers succeed.
I agree. And that's what makes this field so exciting right now. There are so many opportunities out there for people who are willing to work hard and learn new things.
So for anyone listening who's thinking about a career as a warehouse order picker, I say go for it. It's a challenging but rewarding field. And with the right preparation and the right tools, you can achieve your goals.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
All right, so we've covered a lot of ground in this part. We've talked about salary expectations, strengths and weaknesses, following up after the interview, and even more about RoleCatcher's amazing AI platform. But we're not done yet. In part 3, we'll be diving even deeper into the world of warehouse order picking. We'll be talking about safety, career advancement, and the future of the field.
It's going to be good.
So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Yeah, there's a lot to look forward to.
Okay, so we've talked about the job, the skills, the interview, but what about the long game? How do you turn this job into a real career?
That's a great question, and it's one that more people should be asking.
RoleCatcher's career guide mentions some paths for advancement, like becoming a warehouse supervisor.
Yeah, that's a common one.
But what does that actually involve?
Well, it depends on the company, but generally, a warehouse supervisor is responsible for overseeing a team of workers. They make sure that orders are being fulfilled accurately and on time. They might also be involved in things like training new employees, scheduling shifts, and managing inventory.
So it's a lot of responsibility.
It is, but it can also be very rewarding. You get to see the direct impact of your work, and you get to help others develop their skills.
Now, what about those who want to stay on the order picking side of things?
Yeah.
Are there ways to specialize or advance your skills in that area?
Absolutely. One way is to become certified in operating different types of equipment.
Like forklifts and pallet jack.
Exactly. Those certifications can make you more valuable to employers, and they can open up new opportunities for advancement.
What about the role of technology in warehouses? We talked about automation earlier. How is that changing the job of a warehouse order picker?
Well, it's definitely having an impact. Robots are becoming more common in warehouses, and they're able to perform some of the tasks that were previously done by humans.
So does that mean that order pickers are going to be out of a job?
Not necessarily. I think it's more likely that the job will evolve. Order pickers will need to learn how to work alongside robots, and they'll need to develop new skills.
Like what?
Well, they might need to be able to program robots or troubleshoot problems. They might also need to be able to handle more complex orders that require human judgment.
So it's not about being replaced by robots. It's about adapting to the changing technology.
Exactly. And that's something that's important for anyone in any field to be thinking about.
Now, I know we've talked a lot about the practical side of things, but I want to end on a more personal note. What advice would you give to someone who's just starting out in their career as a warehouse order picker?
That's a good one. I would say be a sponge. Soak up as much knowledge as you can. Ask questions, learn from your colleagues, and don't be afraid to take on new challenges.
That's great advice. And I think it applies to anyone, no matter what their career path.
I-
Well, this deep dive has been amazing. We've learned so much about the world of warehouse order picking, from the day-to-day tasks to the career paths and the impact of technology.
It's been a lot of fun.
I want to thank you for sharing your expertise with us,
My pleasure.
and I want to thank RoleCatcher for providing such valuable resources. For anyone listening who's interested in learning more about this field, I highly recommend checking out their website.
They've got some great stuff.
And to all the future warehouse order pickers out there, I say good luck. Go out there and crush it.
Cut this.
And that's a wrap on this deep dive into the world of warehouse order picking. We'll catch you next time on the Deep Dive.